Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders is learning the system. He revealed how closely he is to grasping the full Sean Lewis system, and I'm going to talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Buffs.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode, we got a good one. We got a big one. A lot of things have happened. This is why today's episode was a little bit later release. Had a lot to write about. We're going to be talking about Shedeur Sanders and his comfort with the offense, the Sean Lewis offense. As we learned, is a difficult one to learn and a difficult one to grasp. And we're going to see how he feels about where he stands with it and what that means for the team moving forward. We're going to be talking about the presumed death of the Pac-12. I was covering that this morning, which was quite the experience. It's still kind of happening, but I would say it's slowed down a little bit. So that's why I am dropping this episode as late as I am, because I was out there just typing away, trying to figure out everything that was happening for every team that I cover in the Pac-12 and what's going on. And then we have another Coach Prime rumor, which I think has no weight, but I mean, we got to talk about it just to address it because it was said by such a well-respected person on such a well-respected show. But before we do, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Buffs your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let's dive right in. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback for Colorado. He's been in a different offensive system all 3 years at Colorado, and I like his honesty. He was asked recently where he currently feels he is in learning the Sean Lewis system. And he said, I'd say right now I'm at 80%. I'd say I'm almost there. Sean Lewis, Coach Lewis, Lewis has had 12 years in the offense. I've had a spring. So coming back to it, meeting with him, we're able to spend more time together. It means a lot because I'm starting to understand what he thinks and why he is calling certain stuff and his thought process, but what to do in each situation that presents itself. So he's given us all the answers to the problem. We just have to solve them. If we don't, then it's on us. I like his approach. Realistically, I think it's fair to say that it'd probably be a little unfair to expect Shedeur Sanders to have a complete grasp on this offense. Just because, one, like you said, spring ball is about 30-ish days. Two, I would say at least 70 to 80% of the guys that he was working with in spring ball are no longer here. They're no longer in Boulder. We had like Montana, Lamonius Craig, Jordan Tyson was there. There was just a lot of different bodies moving in and out, and so now he's getting used to it. He'll have a completely different offensive line. Shedeur Sanders was there as well. So he not only is he needing to learn the system, he's needing to learn the guys around him. So I think that makes sense. And then the interesting part that stood out to me as well was he kind of views it as an equation, a math problem. I myself, not the biggest math guy, but when you put it as simple as this, it makes sense. He says he gives us all the answers to the problem. We just have to solve them. So he just has to figure out what he needs to do in certain situations, which, I mean, I think that's all about learning. Shedeur's learning process of going through the reads and figuring out what his progressions are. So I feel like that isn't going to be too much of a challenge for him. But I wanted to kind of show you guys, kind of discuss Sean Lewis's best quarterback at Kent State, Dustin Crum. I think he's probably the most comparable for Shedeur in the sense that he had to learn the system and then obviously apply it. Colin Schlee was only the starter 1 year. Dustin Crum was a starter for 5 years at Kent State. And I think he really showcased the ceiling of this, or what a potential ceiling of this offensive system could be, because his freshman year wasn't a starter. Sophomore year wasn't a starter. Junior year takes over as a starter. Obviously, he had a couple years to learn the system. So he completed nearly 70% of his passes for 2,600 yards and 20 touchdowns and 2 picks. The following year, the COVID year, so they only had 4 games, completed 73% of his passes, 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 picks. Then his last year, 2021, 64% of his passes completed, 3,206 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks. So I think we see that if you make the correct decisions in this offense, you can not only have major production passing wise, you'll have major efficiency, and you'll throw minimal interceptions, which is the key to success in college football for a quarterback. You want to complete passes, you want to throw touchdowns, and you want to limit your interceptions. And I think Shedeur Sanders has shown the capability of doing that. Jackson State had over nearly 7,000 yards in 2 years, 70 touchdowns almost, or 70 touchdowns, and just a handful of picks. So learning this system, learning where he needs to go with the ball, when, and what he can do when things break down will be huge for him. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does against TCU right away. I feel like that's a pretty big test of the offense and this team in general, because the game is about 20-something-ish days away now, and I don't want to say it's a bad thing that he's at 80% because he said he's going to learn it soon, but it's more so I'm more worried about the team around him. How do they feel about it? Do the receivers know their routes? Do all the receivers know where they're supposed to be? Do they know? Does Shedeur like where they like to break in their routes and all that? That's my concern. And that's why usually you like a cupcake game week 1 to kind of beat up on the Citadel or beat up on, I don't know, some random program, Rice, for example. You'd like to beat up on those schools so that way you could kind of apply these things. But TCU is going to provide a tough test right away, and I'm interested to see just how well Shedeur does. But we've been hearing good reviews about just about everybody on the offense outside the offensive line. Yikes. Sean Lewis talked about Weaver today, or Xavier Weaver. I was combining the two. Talking about how he's performing like he's a pro, takes everything serious like he's a pro, and he's doing really well. So the weapons around Shedeur are living up to the standards. It's going to comes down to just how well he adapts and how to the defense and his offensive line. So that'll be a big mystery. What's not a mystery is that this episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsor, LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire could feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I personally, you guys know the story, grad school from Quinnipiac. Looking for a job, go to LinkedIn, find my job at the Pac-12 Network. If you want to find a perfect candidate like myself, when I was a perfect candidate, then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you could quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs. It helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay. It appears to I won't say finally, but I feel like Colorado fans were kind of Colorado fans were more open to the Pac-12 kind of dissolving because it's not really their problem anymore. They're in the Big 12. Colorado's a Big 12 program, but to say that Friday morning was arguably the most hectic morning I've had in covering college football in my, I think, 3 years now of covering college football, I think it would be an understatement. It was literally so chaotic that rather than reporting every single thing that was happening because there were so many things being reported by different people at different times, I just made a little timeline of what actually was going on with the Pac-12 because I literally was looking at everything and I was like, okay, this is just too much right now. We're just going to condense everything and I'm going to talk about what was going on. So this is the timeline from when I woke up at 6:15-ish to what has happened within the last hour or so. So if you guys didn't know, the Pac-12 was kind of working on a last effort push to make things work. It did not work. It did not. So now, but let me show you what happened because there was a chance. There was a chance for them to make it work. So I wake up at 6:15, do my thing, put my contacts in, get a nice package from Bird Dogs, one of our other sponsors. They shipped us a bunch of nice stuff, like a cool hat and some joggers. So I get that package. I'm excited for the day. I'm like, let's see where this Friday takes us. Okay. First report I see at 6:28 a.m. Pacific time. All these are Pacific time. I'm not going to keep saying Pacific time. Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic and NBC, I believe now, reports that Oregon and Washington leaving the Pac-12 lost all momentum And so they were supposed to go to the Big Ten, and all of a sudden the momentum was gone. They were no longer going to the Big Ten. They're staying with the Pac-12, which would be huge for the Pac-12 because obviously if they get to stay in the Pac, if they get those two schools, those are the premier programs remaining in the Pac-12. So I was like, oh, that's crazy. I'm like, the Pac-12 is living to see another day. Good for them. Then you go to 6:45 a.m. They have a chance to sign a grant of rights. So they have a meeting this morning, the Pac-12 did, where the Pac-12 commissioner was presenting a grant of rights deal with Apple and further media rights stuff. And so they needed the Pac-12 schools to sign on so that way they can move forward. And this is what the report from Brett McMurphy says. At last minute, the Pac-12 may stay together and sign grant of rights. After Monday's media rights offer, the Pac-12 held multiple Zoom meetings this week. Arizona's Bobby Robbins appeared fully committed to the Pac-12, with one person saying if Arizona leads, he should win an Oscar. So not only are Oregon and Washington by 6:45 a.m. today staying, Arizona's staying, even though there was noise that they'd be leaving last night. So that gets a little crazy. Then 6:51, Oregon and to the Big Ten becomes extremely unlikely. So Pete Thamel was kind of following up on the previous report, and he says Oregon is expected to stay in the Pac-12, barring an 11th hour change that could have the power to keep the league together, as Arizona has not finalized a deal with the Big 12. So Oregon and Washington not leaving for the Big Ten, huge for the Pac-12. This means Arizona might stay because they were probably leaving because they thought Oregon was leaving. So that's a whole thing. And then all of a sudden, you go to Arizona Twitter at 6:54. So in the span of 3 minutes, 24/7 Sports' Jason Shear reports, there's a very real chance that Arizona makes the decision to go to the Pac-12 alone. So now, with hope that the Pac-12 could stick together and that Arizona might stay and an Oscar is going to be dished out for the performance, Arizona's like, no, we're going to the Big 12. We don't care if Arizona State and Utah are going with us. We're going. So that was interesting. Then 7:50, so it kind of goes silent for an hour because I think the meeting was ongoing. The ACC and the Pac-12 possibility gets discussed. Do they merge? Does the ACC take in the remaining Pac-12 teams and form a bi-coastal super conference, which would help both of those conferences out in a major way? With even an anonymous ACC athletic director said that college sports needs a conference out west. So it's like, oh, the Pac-12 is going to be alive in some regard. And then 8:01. So from 7, let's go to the last time it was discussed. From 6:51 to 8:01, which is when the report was dropped, the Pac-12 is unable to get a grant of rights signed this morning, and nothing has changed for Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten. So the Ducks and the Huskies are expected to go. So all of a sudden, the mood went from, oh no, the Pac-12 is surviving, to, oh, Oregon and Washington are going back to the Big 12. And then at 8:10, Arizona State is back kind of, they're on track to join the Big 12. The Big 10 has an emergency call at 8:17, which is to discuss Oregon and Washington. I think they were kind of parlaying to get more money. And then to kind of finish off all of these reports and stuff, Oregon and Washington officially make the decision to go to the Pac or the Big Ten, therefore ending the possibility of, well, there's always a chance that we could stay in the Pac-12. Oregon and Washington go to the Pac-12, which effectively kind of kills Oregon and Washington to the Big 12, effectively killing the Pac-12, because now Arizona and State and Utah are considering the Big 12 again, and Stanford and Cal are hoping for that Big 10 invite. The only possibility for the Pac-12 teams, the remaining 4 that aren't spoken for, are merge with the Mountain West, get added to the ACC, or gets a little murky after that. So that was the craziness of the Pac-12 timeline. Now it's time to talk about the crazy rumor that I heard the other day, a report by, I don't really know if it was a report, I guess, just hearsay. A reporter by the name of Bruce Feldman is predicting a departure for Coach Prime. I'm going to talk about that when we get back and why I don't think it's going to happen. So we're back. We're talking about a possible Coach Prime departure. Don't really know about it, but this is what he said. College football insider Bruce Feldman was on the Rich Eisen show, which is a great podcast. I love it. Rich Eisen just has a good voice where I'm like, I can listen to this guy. I aspire for my voice to be as raspy and just powerful as his, he's talking about Coach Prime. He's talking about the Pac-12, and then they brought up Coach Prime. And so he goes, 2 years from now, after the 2024 season, I would not be surprised if Deion Sanders is not the head coach of Colorado. I just don't think he's going to be there that long. He says if things go well for Colorado over the next couple of years, he thinks he's going to move on to a bigger program. And if things go bad for the next couple of years, he'll leave. He said it'll either go really well. They were horrible before. So he goes from 1 win to last year to maybe 4 or 5 this year, and then maybe 8 or 9. Then I think he goes to a bigger school, or it will not work out at all. And I think they will all be at odds. I think there's a lot of stuff that has the potential to create a lot of friction. If it doesn't go great, then I think they go in a different direction. Sorry, had to take a sneeze break real quick. To address that, I find it interesting that everybody was saying Colorado wants to go to the Big 12 for stability. And then there was a whole notion that they were going to the Big 12 because Coach Prime wanted to go to the Big 12. Obviously, I think there's a little bit of truth to that. But being in the Big 12 right now, he has a program in Colorado that could be the face of that conference. There's not a single program in the Big 12 where I look at them and be like, you know what? They run the conference. It was Texas or Oklahoma. Obviously, Texas wasn't really living up to the standards of what they think they should be over the past decade or so. But I talked about it before. Every year since 2010, Texas and Oklahoma 1 and 2 in recruiting. Every year since 1998, besides the past two, the Pac or the Big 12 has featured at least one of Texas or Oklahoma. This conference is so up for grabs. Colorado could be established as a literal powerhouse, that a position that they haven't been in since the 90s. And even then, I don't think they had the chance to be like a powerhouse. I don't know if they were considered one of the premier programs. Colorado could be that with Coach Prime. If he wants to build that, he has the opportunity to. I don't think there's going to be really, I talk about all the jobs that could be opening up. Texas A&M, maybe. Does he want to return to his home state of Texas? Sure. Texas A&M hasn't had a lot of success. They're going to owe Jimbo Fisher so much money. Don't know if they can afford Coach Prime. I'm sure they could, but do they want to fork over that much money, or do they go with an up-and-coming younger coach like Garrett Riley or something? Miami. Does Coach Prime go to one of his alma mater's arch rivals? I don't know. He surprises with all going to Colorado. Don't know. Mike Norvell is not leaving Florida State anytime soon unless there's a major collapse. Who else do I think would be an attractive job? Florida, if Billy Napier doesn't work out. Again, does he go to his alma mater's biggest rival? I don't think so. So I don't really know why we're kind of predicting the departure of Coach Prime yet. I think we should wait and see what he does. I feel like he has the potential to build a great program. I don't really know why he'd want to leave Colorado unless eventually he gets to a point where he just kind of outgrows Boulder and there's a sense that he's achieved all he could achieve here, which I don't know if that's actually going to happen. Two, there's the family aspect. He moved his whole family to Boulder. His three sons, technically. You got Deion Jr., Shedeur's the quarterback, Shiloh's the safety. His daughter is on the basketball team, I believe. His family's moved out there. He kind of has ties in Colorado now. I think he enjoys Colorado more than people realize. He kind of seems like a honorary Coloradioan or whatever it is. I don't know what the proper word would be. But the people of Colorado love him. The city of Boulder loves him. And I don't know if that'll be enough to keep him forever. But to leave in 2 years would be pretty shocking. Especially, they're basically predicting he's going to coach out the tenure of Shedeur Sanders and then leave, which I feel like would be quite the statement. I feel like there's no weight to this statement right now. Obviously, you got to keep waiting and seeing. But college football's crazy. I don't really think there's a reason to kind of discuss someone leaving a job in 2 years when you haven't even seen him coach a game. Let's be excited about the now. They take on TCU in less than a month. It's going to be an exciting matchup. It's going to be a great matchup. I'm going to have you cover it every step of the way right here on Locked On Buffs. We're going to have film breakdowns after every game. We're going to have the voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson, coming on the show. It's going to be fantastic. You guys won't want to miss it. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow the podcast. I appreciate you guys, and you guys have a great Friday and a great weekend. And hopefully college football settles down a little bit so we can focus on our Buffs moving forward.